So why do you even need to know this? As a portrait or event photographer, specifically weddings, which is what we're going to be covering today, you will never be able to consistently rely on natural light. Whether it is a storm that pushes you indoors for portraits, or maybe an ill-lit reception center that forces you to shoot at 10,000 ISO, which you never want to do. Or maybe it's that the ceremony gets put into a basement that evening because it's wet outside. All of these are situations that I've been put in before, and I would have been absolutely in so much trouble if I didn't know how to use my off-camera flash. Not only once you're able to master artificial lighting do you have these situations where you can step up to the plate and provide your couples with gorgeous lighting, but you're able to use this in other situations that usually you might not have and create your own lighting. You're no longer limited by the natural light that's provided to you at each event, but you're able to create your own lighting to create gorgeous and consistent images for you and your couples. Before we dive into our setups and things like that, I first want to dive into gear. Starting with my camera gear, I shoot on three now, Nikon 750s. The 750s are my favorite. I cannot say enough good things about them. They conquer low light incredibly. I often shoot as high as like 1500 during my sessions. I'll shoot cocktail hour around 3000 to even 3500 if I need to. They're amazing in low light. I also shoot with a 24, a 50, a 70 to 200, and a 45mm tilt shift. When I'm shooting in studios, I mostly stick to my 50mm. The other things do make an appearance, but if you're shooting on backdrops specifically, do not shoot lower than a 50mm. Otherwise, you'll be photoshopping your backdrops for years to come. The 50mm compression is really where you want to sit with things, even higher if you do have an 85 or even a 70 to 200. Okay, now that we've talked about camera gear, let's dive into flash gear. My flash setup is simple, it is cheap and affordable. I'm not one to go spend like $700 on a flash setup if I don't need to. You can get my entire flash setup for less than $300 thanks to good old Amazon Prime. So starting with my flashes, I shoot with the newer TT560s. I have shot with brand name flashes before, and while they're incredible, they weren't really my cup of tea. I love having complete control over my gear and how high settings are, how low settings are, and these ones do that perfectly. You just have an up and down button. It is the simplest way to get used to flashes. They do have these two things which we're going to talk a little bit about later. This little plastic piece does help spread out light a little bit. It's not the most useful tool when it comes to flash, but these little white strips we're going to be using quite a bit when we do off-camera flash. The next thing I pair these with are the newer remotes and triggers. They come in a little set, and there's both the transmitter and the receiver. This is going to go, your flash will go onto this similar like it does onto your hot shoe. Just like that. And then these go on top of your camera to trigger the flashes. They're super simple to use. Again, I just buy rechargeable batteries to keep everything going, and I've never had an issue with them. The recycle time with the 560s probably is a little bit less than you have with your normal cameras, but it's never been an issue for me as long as I carry around rechargeable batteries. These settings, you're able to put them onto a radio station that fits your gear. You can even set up, sometimes I'll have one flash, let's say near the bride and groom when they're giving toast, and then another flash next to the person giving the toast, and I can set them on different stations and then have each camera on a different station so that I can shoot them both simultaneously while only triggering the flash that I need. Off-camera flash, again, it comes in handy so often in the different situations that you're going to have on your wedding day, specifically when you need to be moving consistently, but you don't want to be changing your settings every 5 seconds. The last piece of gear that I use from Newer are the Newer tripods. They're super tiny, compact. I'm able to pack them into my suitcase for out-of-state weddings, and they're honestly pretty sturdy. I've never had an issue with them in regards to how heavy my gear is. My gear is super simplistic, really light. I don't want to be carrying a million things around or having to pack them for my out-of-state weddings, so it's essential to me that everything can be compact and really light. And that leads me to my next favorite item, which is this Westcott Rapid Box. It was an absolute game changer for me with my off-camera flash setup. If you only purchase one thing from this course afterwards, let it be this piece of gear specifically. It produces the creamiest, most beautiful artificial light that I've ever seen and gives you the feel of natural light even though you may be in a pitch black room. So what we have here is you turn it around and your flash and your little remote sets will slide in right here. Your flash is just sticking through this little hole right there. But anyway, I'm gonna open it up so that you can see what it looks like inside. So once your flash is sticking through here, it's going to bounce off of this little dish and back through the reflector and then diffuse it with that white screen that was on front before, and it creates just gorgeous and consistent lighting. When you're shooting artificial lighting, what you have to understand is that light can be very directional. You're creating your own light sources. So when you're shooting just with the flashes, lighting will be much harsher and in a tighter space, whereas when you use things like this, the lighting is able to spread out through the reflector and then onto your subject. The light that comes out of the Westcott Rapid Box is so creamy and it's essential to anything I'm shooting. This is the one piece of gear that I use for every single setup that I will be showing you today. There is no lighting situation on a wedding day that is artificial where you will not see this Westcott Rapid Box.